Hello everyone, my name is Jordan Elizabeth Gelber and I'm here as the host of the Future of Medical Affairs webinar. We're going to begin today's webinar sponsored by the Apothecary Group. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to join us for what we believe is one of the most important presentations in medical affairs. Today's webinar will discuss the future and evolving role of medical affairs and new offerings that can help provide a strong foundation to any medical affairs professional or those interested in entering medical affairs. Now let's get started. Here's a brief overview of our agenda. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type your questions in the chat box on the right-hand side. We will be answering those questions at the end. I'd like to welcome our first speaker, Dr. Paul Rowe, MD, Vice President of Global Medical Affairs at Sanofi. Dr. Rowe has over a decade of experience from preclinical to late-phase drug development. He has been responsible for overall medical strategy and life cycle management at several companies. He has co-authored several publications and is a frequent speaker at professional society meetings. He received his training at Harvard University, Rochester School of Medicine, the London School of Economics, and Villanova University. Dr. Rowe, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jordan, for the introduction. It is a pleasure to be here today to discuss what is an increasingly important topic, namely the changing pharmaceutical industry landscape. Now, before I continue, this is just a disclaimer to inform you that any of the views presented here are my own and do not represent any institution or company I may be affiliated with. I will start with a recent and what I believe is an important development in the world of medical affairs, namely Amarin's recent case against the FDA, where the drug manufacturer wanted to share off-label data for their triglyceride-reducing drug Vascepa for a broader group of patients. Well, guess what? In August, a federal district judge in Manhattan ruled that the FDA could not prohibit Amarin from using truthful information to promote its drug, even for unapproved uses, because doing so would violate the company's right to free speech. Some drug safety experts say that the settlement could change the way some companies market their drugs. So a lot is happening in medical affairs. But as many of you know already, a lot is happening in healthcare in general over the last few years. Healthcare is shifting to a greater focus on outcomes, cost, and access to medications. As you all are well aware, physicians have less time, and there is an increasing pool of stakeholders in medicine that we in the industry need to engage at a greater level. As medical affairs evolves to play a greater role in data dissemination and generation, we really need to ensure that we in the industry are well prepared to understand how these shifts will impact what we do on a day-to-day basis, but even more importantly, how to position ourselves to address them effectively. And I think this is one of the reasons that we are seeing a surge in the number of physicians leaving traditional clinical practice and transitioning to more executive-type roles in pharma. As a matter of fact, recent data from the American College of Physician Executives demonstrated that prior to 1988, roughly 25 physicians per year were transitioning to industry. By the mid-1990s, that number grew to over 300. Today, it has almost doubled. A bigger change is that we're seeing a shift in the type of drugs that pharma is investing in. Historically, companies have had small molecule drugs, which are essentially chemical compounds made by chemical synthesis. They're generally lower in price than the biologics I'm about to mention. And pharma has placed bets on many of the large patient population diseases, typically chronic diseases such as hypertension, high cholesterol, insomnia. Although revenue for these categories has dropped significantly because many are now generic. Generic meaning that they lost patent protection and a competitor now develops an exact chemical formulation of the active ingredient. There's also been a shift to categories of specialty drugs. Oftentimes those are biologics. Biologic is basically a living organism that is grown in a cell. They're more difficult to develop, manufacture, and therefore copy. A biosimilar is a copy of a biologic. Because they are more recent, many are still under patent protection, but that is slowly changing. Often you may see them in more complex diseases where small molecule drugs have not proven effective, or the biologics have seen increased efficacy beyond what the small molecule drugs have traditionally produced. Again, generally they're more pricier than the small molecule drugs, often smaller patient populations, for instance rheumatoid arthritis, 1.4 million patients versus 74 million patients with high cholesterol. But nevertheless, it could have a big market. It may even be a blockbuster, even though the patient population is small, the prices are high. We could also possibly be in the early stages of a new innovation cycle. That is, biologics for large population type diseases such as cardiovascular. This could combine the higher priced biologics with larger mass market diseases. A good example is the PCSK9 inhibitors that were just approved in 2015. A new class of drugs for low in cholesterol. It works differently than statins, and they are differentiated on safety and efficacy. A couple examples being Repatha from Amgen and Praluent from Sanofi. The problem is that they are relatively expensive, $14,000 a year versus less than $1,000 a year for a statin. Obviously, payers and healthcare systems will drive towards traditional statins, and pharma will have to make the case to shift to the pricier biologics, usually looking at a benefit-risk type of situation. To be able to successfully navigate the changing landscape, a successful medical affairs professional needs to be able to bring not only clinical acumen, but a strong sense of business savvy to their role. Understanding things like the competitive marketplace, life cycle management, and business development provide what I would call a holistic medical affairs expertise. That is an expert who is well-rounded, understanding everything from pharmacovigilance to health economics, outcomes research, and what it practically means to the business. For most of us on this call, we are very familiar with these three organizations, namely the Office of the Inspector General, the OIG, the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, and the Department of Justice, DOJ. They have provided clear guidance on the expectations they have of pharmaceutical companies when it comes to their medical affairs departments. Of course, compliance is key, but in addition to this, a well-trained organization that minimizes risk to the organization and communicates accurate information is critical. Oftentimes for medical affairs, in particular home-based medical affairs teams, they are not provided with the necessary in-depth foundational training needed to understand different facets of their role and how it relates to other roles within the medical or even outside the medical affairs teams. And this is critical because we have seen significant growth in medical affairs. As a matter of fact, by the end of 2008, the number of U.S. sales representatives dropped to 90,000 from a peak of about 106,000 in 2006. This trend is expected to continue as company efforts shift away from mass marketing campaigns and move toward targeted marketing for specialty projects. And the number of MSLs has increased steadily, totaling near 2,000 in 2008, up almost 50% from 2003. There's actually been an over 300% growth in the number of MSLs alone. Think about that. So companies are relocating a significant proportion of their marketing budget to fund medical affairs. And this is why we need to raise the bar. With that, I will turn it back over to Jordan. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. It is my pleasure now to introduce Dr. Anthony Bevilacqua. Dr. Bevilacqua has several years of industry experience in field medical affairs. He began his career in pharma as a drug information resident and postdoctoral fellow with the Rutgers Pharmaceutical Industry Fellowship Program and his company sponsor, AZI. Anthony subsequently joined Seattle Genetics, taking increasing responsibilities within their medical information department and supporting cross-functional activities in medical affairs to launch a targeted agent in Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Anthony has experience in both the primary care and oncology therapeutic areas. Currently, he is at AZI in field medical. He actively mentors those looking to pursue roles in pharma. He received his Pharma D from the prestigious Philadelphia College of Pharmacy. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Bevilacqua.
Thank you very much, Jordan, for the warm introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Anthony Bevilacqua, and I'll be presenting this very important topic. I'll spend the next few minutes focusing on medical affairs, learning, and development. This is my disclaimer slide that any of the views presented here are my own and do not represent any institution or company that I may be affiliated with previously. First, we need to ask ourselves, what does a great medical affairs team look like? The simple illustration shown here shows how physician engagement has evolved over time. The point that I'd really like to focus on is that if you really effectively want to engage healthcare providers for medical affairs, it isn't just your medical science liaisons. It's really a strategic, coordinated approach across all of medical affairs. So, medical directors, even clinical, are reaching out to KOLs and engaging them. More and more, we are no longer working in compartmentalized functions. What this means is that as medical affairs professionals, we need to possess a greater level of knowledge about all aspects of medical affairs. As Dr. Rowe discussed, medical affairs is growing rapidly and the standards have changed. It used to be that an MSL without a terminal degree would be able to obtain such a position. Those days are now over. Within the last decade, with an ever-increasing focus on medical affairs, holding a terminal degree demonstrates scientific and/or clinical knowledge, but that's only step one. Successful medical affairs professionals need to possess a lot more. If we think about the different attributes of an effective medical affairs professional, there are 4 primary characteristics that come to mind. Number 1 is differentiated insights. Number 2, a broad therapeutic area knowledge. Number 3, a comprehensive understanding of the health system. And number 4, a strong knowledge about health economics and outcomes research. I'd certainly find it interesting to hear from those that are on the webcast about what they think about these characteristics and if they can be elaborated more upon. What you can do is type them in the chat function in the webcast, and we can discuss more during our Q&A session. So the next question must be, how do we get them there? Well, one of the keys to successfully engaging employees is professional development. Several studies have shown that employees that believe their employer is strongly vested in their growth and development are more motivated, thrive, and have lower attrition rates. Therefore, providing employees with both the right measures of success along with opportunities to grow and develop professionally is critical to the team's success. This is particularly true of medical affairs teams who are composed of highly educated and successful professionals looking to be intellectually challenged in their roles. We find that most medical affairs training programs focus their attention on field medical affairs or medical science liaisons. This training is comprised of 2 parts. The first, disease state or product training, and the second, company policies and procedures training. However, for both field-based and internal medical affairs, there is little offered for continued knowledge, growth, and development. As a broader understanding of the health system becomes more and more important, it's imperative from both the strategic and compliance perspective that medical affairs professionals have a strong foundation and knowledge across various domains that impact medical affairs. Medical affairs has fundamentally 4 main areas of focus. Communication of data, which is the professional's ability to effectively communicate and tell a story. This cannot be understated enough. Number 2, being able to critically appraise data, but also interpret it properly. Understanding clinical trial design, evidence-based medicine are crucial. Number 3, the ability to generate data. This goes back to our understanding about how to be strategic as well as analyze gaps in the data, but also understand lifecycle management as well. And the 4th, of course, is that all of this needs to be done in a compliant manner. Staying up to speed on rules and regulations to minimize a company's risk is absolutely vital. With that, I'm excited to introduce the first ever board certification program in medical affairs, or the BCMS program. The program is delivered by the Accreditation Council for Medical Affairs. The program covers 20 different modules or topics that provide both a deep understanding and foundation for success in medical affairs. Here is a brief overview of some of the topics covered. For a full list of all 20 modules, I encourage everyone to visit medicalaffairsspecialist.org. That's medicalaffairsspecialist.org. So I'm sure everyone is wondering what the eligibility criteria are for this program. Applicants have to have either an MD, DO, PhD, or PharmD degree, or students who are currently enrolled in an accredited doctoral program are eligible to both enroll as well as sit for the exam. The thing I really like about this is that it not only gives you the most comprehensive foundation I've seen out there for medical affairs, but it also provides you with something that you can use in your professional designation and title, which is just huge. I think with the increasingly competitive nature of medical affairs, this is something that can certainly help give a candidate an advantage. As far as the exam itself, this is an online program and it is all self-paced. There is a maintenance required to recertify every 5 years, and the exam consists of approximately 70 questions and is required to achieve the BCMS designation and title. The exam is also given online. Here's just a quick overview of some of the contributors to the BCMS program. The thing that I think here is nice is that there are contributors and advisors from both industry as well as academia. As of right now, the BCMS program is available in the United States and Canada, but there are plans to eventually make this available to global medical affairs teams around the world. With that, I'll end with my last slide here, which provides a brief overview of the Apothecary Group, which is working in conjunction with the Accreditation Council for Medical Affairs to create awareness for this BCMS program. Here's an overview of their services. The Apothecary Group is a strategic medical affairs consulting firm which works with medical affairs companies to make them more effective. It provides career coaching for those interested for a career in pharma, so I encourage you all to check them out at www.apothecarygroup.com. That's www.apothekergroup.com. With that, I will turn it back over to Jordan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anthony, for that wonderful presentation. Now it's time that we could take a few questions. To submit a question, please respond below and submit in the form to the right.